You've balanced an entrepreneurial life. You've made a living after quitting your 9 to 5. I know this is something you talk about a lot. What advice do you have what advice do you have specifically for people who want to quit their 9 to 5 job?
First off, I would say to have a pretty good plan, like, of what you're going to do. Obviously, like, I wouldn't just like quit and then just like dive into like, I'm going to pursue podcasting and maybe it'll, like, obviously, like, set yourself up to where you can be making money somehow, whether that's like another job or whatever, bussing tables for a week or two or a month to kind of get by. So like, have a strong plan. Like, don't just like quit your job and then fucking like, go into it. Like, for me, basically what happened with me is I worked for that agency for 3 years and I was getting crushed and I was over the clients, didn't really care about them, and I was like fed up with it. I didn't feel like I was, valued enough. I didn't feel like I was making enough as I was worth. Dealt with a bunch of BS that I didn't want to deal with. And then I got the opportunity, which is ironic, from my boss at the time. His friend needed someone to come out and shoot him driving his race car, like, for his racing and his upcoming season. So we connected. My boss at my old agency connected me to this guy, and we did the thing. We did a couple months. I was working both jobs. He had me on retainer, essentially. So I was making pretty good money, and I worked there for like, I think 2 months. We'd do a weekend every month, and we'd go and I'd shoot for like 3 or 4 days with him and edit throughout the month, and YouTube video, Instagram reels, you know the deal. And I would say, like, go into it with a plan, because if I didn't have that money coming in, I would have been pretty stressed. But like, also, there's been months in the last year. It's been about a year since I left, or since I put in my 2 weeks, I guess. And there's been months where it's like, bro, I made no money. Like, no money came in. Like, I'm laying in bed every night. Like, how am I gonna pay my rent? How am I gonna pay my car bill? Whatever. How am I gonna grow my following? Like, dude, there's just so much self-doubt and so much like anxiety and like stress. For me personally, it's like the stress is what kills me. I'll get stressed and I'll overthink, and I'm really trying to get into a mindset of like, these thoughts aren't real, like, at all. Overthinking isn't real if you don't allow it to be real. So I guess the biggest advice, if I could summarize that, would be, like, have a good plan before you quit. Like, don't burn any bridges, obviously. Like, I could have been more communicative to my old boss before leaving. It's kind of like 0 to 100. I was like, yo, I'm gonna leave this job. And like, you got to go all in. There's no half-assing it. You got to go full ass into it, and just like, and focus and believe in yourself as much as you possibly can, because no one else is going to. Even if you're going to have your mother, your father, maybe some of your good friends, but like, majority of people are going to be like talking behind your back and not going to have that much support, even though it may come off that way. So like, you just got to be your number one fan. Just push until the wheels fall off.
There's a number of things I that sparked in my head. I guess I'll say this. I was reading this book called Backable. In the book Backable by Sunil Gupta, the whole concept of the book is, how do you get people to back your ideas? So if I want to quit college, how do I get my parents to think quitting college is a good decision? How do I get people to think that I will have a successful podcast? And he goes through some of the most famous speeches. Steve Jobs announcing the iPhone. He goes through the number one most talked TED Talk, most watched TED Talk. And if you look at these speeches, he says, put your book down, go watch these speeches. Tell me if they're good speakers. Steve Jobs, when he's announcing the iPhones, says filler words like 85 times. He's not that confident. In the number one most watched TED Talk, same thing, not that great of a speaker, but these legendary speeches that changed history. And you ask yourself, why? And he said, if you were to ask someone what makes you a good speaker or what makes people believe in you, they would say, 1, confidence, and 2, charisma. Like, how how confident are you and how charismatic are you? And he says that's not, those things help, but what it really is conviction. And Steve Jobs wasn't a great speaker, but he knew that the iPhone would change the world.
Yeah.
And his belief in his product shined through so much that we consider that speech one of the greatest speeches of all time. Same with the TED Talk. And it's like, conviction is a really hard thing to measure because you can point out things about confidence. Like if I was sitting like this, I would be like, hey, that guy's not confident, because confident people open up.
Yeah.
They talk louder. They talk a bit faster. There's things you can pinpoint about confidence. There's things you can pinpoint about charisma. It's very hard to pinpoint things about conviction. The only way is how much I believe in something. You're setting the tone for how much someone else will believe in it.
Yeah.
And so that's something I'm big on, is like having conviction. But I did want to ask you, was like kind of jumping back to what you were saying. Do you think since quitting your 9-to-5 that you've been overall happier?
Had a feeling that was coming. Yeah, I think the level of stress, I'll answer that question at the very end of this, but I think the level of stress that I've taken in has been significantly higher.
Yeah.
I think the level of self-doubt has gone up a handful. When it comes to the work that I'm doing, I'm obviously a lot more passionate about it, right? Like I'm building my personal brand, I'm building my content my way. There's no one like above me telling me like this is how you should do it, or this is like who you should target, or this is how you should target them. It's like, this is all for me. And that's like, for like 3 years, dude, I was like just so tired of doing stuff for everyone else. And like, even when I was doing the videography with this driver, I was like, I'm there shooting this and he's behind the camera. And I was like, the whole time I'm just thinking to myself, like, I want to be the person in front of the camera, not behind it. Even though I can maneuver a camera, you know, pretty above average, I would say, to the common people. It's like, I still want to be in front of it. Like, I want to be that figure.
Why?
I just feel like it's been, I don't know. It's just a natural feeling. It's just something that I've always been scared to do. I've always been very shy in public speaking, very self-conscious. I was always a very small kid growing up, so that had a little bit of a effect on those years. But I think when I first started doing the talking head stuff, it was like, yeah, this was a big goal of mine to get better at speaking in public, or speaking, you know, to someone I've never met before.
Yeah.
It's like, these are things that I used to be hesitant to do because I was like self-conscious and I wasn't that confident. And I knew that if I just kept doing this and kept practicing it, like, I had to get better. But since leaving the 9-to-5 and since doing this for a whole year, it's like, yes, it's been stressful. And happiness levels, I would say, yeah, I think I am happier, because it's like I'm putting in maybe more work and more effort, and there's more stress coming out of this, but it's all for me. And that's why I'm happy, because I'm doing something for me. Let's go with the camera. Camera stop or what? Very good.
Sorry,
You want to check it?
oh, the camera's good. I'm just worried that the sun's gonna beam down on it. I'm gonna see if I can like.
A little pause.